Moving along, J. Chris Newberg is on the screen. Hey, Chris.
Yeah, no duds there, right?
Woo. Yeah. And
How
an
you doing?
ABX t-shirt. Way to be.
Yes.
He's got audio. Chris,
I busted it out.
do you remember? Are you old enough to remember WABX?
I do. I remember that there was a Stephen Allen Siegel guy who was on there for a while. I think for a little bit. And I remember, wasn't Chuck Santoni over there for a minute? I do remember like very early stages of it. I was like probably in like 8th grade, 9th grade, 7th grade.
Perfect.
That's funny. Dave Dixon is the name that I always hear. And the only thing I've heard of WABX is some clips that went around when, who's the guy that died, was murdered?
Oh,
Doug knew him well.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, John.
Sorry, I can't remember his name. But anyway,
It's awful.
there were some
John O'Leary.
Thank you.
that's it.
Yes. Good job. Anyway,
The guy who's out of town remembers it.
there were some,
nice.
There were some clips that came out of WABX, and I was disappointed because it was just like very average clips. I'm like, why didn't they save some cooler interviews and stuff like that?
Right.
I don't know. Sometimes things in the rearview mirror are better than they are. I mean, I don't know why WABX went down because I heard so many great things about their music and how cool and how artist-centric they were and interviews. It just sounded like a great place to work. But what happened to it? Why did it die? Anybody know?
I just remember there were so many disturbing morning show things that I really remember this Stephen Allen Siegel character because he had a character, Sister Mary Mystery. And it was just really horrifying Catholic school bits. But I just remember being in Catholic school going, this is great.
I think Stephen Allen Siegel went on to work in Boston, Trudy, when we were there. Yeah, I think he was on ZLX in the morning. Can you Google Stephen Allen Siegel? He may have just passed away.
Oh, I'm 2 for 2 then.
That's so weird. Sorry. Hey, Chris is here to promote, among other things, his podcast name has changed from Heroin's Got a Great Publicist to Newberg. And then also he has a dry bar comedy special, which is called Way Too Soon. And I just watched the whole thing. Chris, congratulations. It's really good.
Thank you so much. It's funny how it happened. I quit comedy. And just like a week after I quit comedy, I didn't tell anybody. But it was just like I was over comedy. It was like pandemic and everything else. I couldn't deal, and there was no work. And then the second I quit, my manager called me and he said, "Well, are you sure you quit? Because there's an offer to do a special." And it wasn't my ideal. I mean, like no one goes into comedy and wants restrictions, but so it was a clean company that decided to pay for it. So I had to go through and take out all the F-bombs and I went through and I had a lot of fun. It was a great challenge.
That's a great set. And by the way, what club was that at? I like the club. It was cool. It looked cool.
It was a cafeteria that they made look like a club.
What?
Really?
Seriously?
Yeah, it was like a big cafeteria that they turned into like a rock club or a comedy club or whatever.
It looked like a really happening club, and the crowd was crowd was really into it. Was that, is something going on with the crowd too? Something weird?
No, I mean, it's definitely produced. I mean, as far as, that's the thing with most comedy specials. What they have is they have a person who is, I don't know what their actual creative producer title, but it's like audience producer or warm up. So they have a warm up guy who walks in and like, you're on camera. This is their break. This is their chance. I want a lot of energy. So it's like they're trained to be a hot audience. That said, there are comics who still fail with that in front of them.
Hold on.
Uh-oh.
We have some breaking news. Breaking news on Stephen Allen Siegel. Trudy, take it away.
Oh, well, he died back in October of 22.
I'm sorry to hear that.
BCN in 68. though.
Yeah, he was an underground kind of guy from the early days.
Yeah, and brilliant. They all lauded him as being brilliant, but he was disorganized and then popped around a little bit, went to California. And then when he came back, he was disillusioned with radio.
I think he had
back in the day.
Did he have a final run on ZLX in Boston?
Yeah. Yes.
Sorry, Chris.
He landed at ZLX.
No, it was great.
He was called the Seagull. Like
the Seagull.
Yeah, like the bird.
Oh, God, is that dumb?
Wow.
It really is.
I just want to say I read about the brilliance and all that, and
Yeah.
I remember when we were on WAAF, and Trudy was working in Boston too. I didn't know you. We didn't know each other, but he was on ZLX then, and I didn't I didn't feel the brilliance. But according to people that know him better, he's really brilliant. So I don't know.
Because he
why
was
I said that.
disillusioned at that point.
It's probably just my
We
competitive
looked at it
nature.
from two different perspectives. I was looking at it as a seventh grader, who's listening to dirty words on the radio.
Right, yeah.
I remember listening to radio that was really over my head in Chicago. Steve Dahl was on WDIA when I was like 14. I thought he was the funniest guy in the world because he'd play a toilet flush and I would laugh.
But if you think about it, radio was maybe a big thing back then as as Jay Chris heard it. And then it progressed. And
True.
I feel like, our standards and their standards were way different.
Well, the stuff that our parents laughed at, like Lucille
Right,
Ball.
yeah, Jack
The
Benny.
chocolates. Oh my God, there's too many chocolates.
Right.
I feel like it's come full circle because of Hannah Gadsby.
Okay, Chris,
Yikes.
we must pause and ask you about your feelings on comedian Hannah Gadsby, who got 10 minutes this morning on CBS. 10 minutes on the
Third
morning
Netflix
show.
special.
And everyone agreed that she's hysterical, yet she didn't say one thing that Mark, did you laugh once?
No,
I
only
didn't
at
either.
her.
I didn't think she was funny at all.
I mean,
I don't know if I view Hannah as a comic.
Exactly.
I mean, she is a storyteller, and I mean, I watched her I haven't seen anything of her new special, but I drank the Kool-Aid. I was like, all right, let's see what this person's all about. And I watched it, and I was like, these stories are horrifying. Why are people laughing at her
Yep.
getting the shit kicked out of her? That doesn't seem funny to me. But Netflix special. After I watched it, I was like, let's see who beat the shit out of me. What can I talk about and maybe call it comedy? But good for them.
I'm not sure you're the right person to get the shit beat out of them that everyone would care enough to give you a special. But anyway,
Yeah.
they kept talking about how funny she was and how hilarious the clip was. And it's just, I was laughing all through the special. And then, I don't know, I didn't see it. But I feel like in this country now, we pretend a lot of stuff. We just pretend. Maybe I'm describing a narrative, but honestly, in her case, I feel like we pretend that she's really funny, and you're not allowed to say otherwise, or you shouldn't. CBS would have never questioned her humor. Never. I mean, there's no way.
I think it's deeper than that. I think it's kind of I think it's whoever the head of Netflix is saying, all right, we put on this comedian, Dave Chappelle, who has this polarizing view to some people about transgender, and he's very funny and he's whatever. Then all of a sudden, everyone's getting all this backlash. So Netflix goes, okay, cool. You want the other kind too? Done. And then he's off the hook now.
I will say this though, Hannah Gadsby sells out like these
Sure.
big arenas. So I mean, I just feel like I'm out of the loop and I don't understand it.
Well, if you're on CBS for 10 minutes on network TV in the morning.
That's because she had the special. And I mean, they didn't put her on and then she got the special.
Well, she said herself on CBS that she went to Netflix to take them to task for Dave Chappelle, and she ended up signing a multi-special deal, as Chris more or less described. And then she was also describing this art show she's involved in, where it's
Picasso.
Pablo Picasso, the 50th anniversary of his death. So naturally, all these galleries are so excited about this because it's a chance to sell some Picasso and to celebrate him as an artist. And she went after them and said, he's a horrible person. And she said, I really think his legacy needs to be complicated. I want to minimize him any way I can. She forced them to feature feminist artists along with Picasso on the 50th anniversary of his death. I don't know what these other artists have to do with
That's
his death.
hilarious.
But
That's funny.
how funny is that? I mean, really?
It's
Chris,
hilarious.
can you help us out here? I just put Chris on the spot.
No, I just think that that's what Hannah does. I think that she's in a position to just be the opposite of Chappelle. It's like you have people who are laughing at Chappelle and enjoying it. Comedy's subjective. Everybody thinks different things are funny, like Mark was saying. Maybe you're out of the loop. I'm also out of the loop. I watch it and I don't understand. I don't understand why it's in the category of comedy. I
Amen.
just don't get it.
All right, we'll put it to bed on that note. I wanted to ask you, there's a couple funny things about your Dry Bar Comedy special, and you can see it if you go to drybarcomedy.com and subscribe. You can actually see it some other
It's
places
actually on
too.
YouTube. It's on YouTube for free.
Yeah, so do that. But I noticed that a lot of people, I've seen a lot of comedians do this, and Neil Rubin mentioned this when he did a column on you, which is a nice column about your father's death and the beautiful fast car you inherited, the Jeep SRT Hellcat, or the SRT Jeep Hellcat, which I guess is super duper fast. Your dad was a big gearhead.
Yeah, he was nuts. He put all of his money into his cars and all of the engine, and he never really gunned it when I was there. And there's definitely some videos on TikTok and YouTube of SRT Hellcats accelerating. And it's not necessary. They're so fast. and I just remember, like I was talking about in the article, my manager Justin got in the car with me. He's like, all right, let's open it up. And I accelerated. Next thing I know, the car's like fishtailing on 4 lanes of Santa Monica. And I'm shaking. And I pulled over and I was like, fuck, this car is fast.
Wow. Well, that's
So-
good. I don't know what's happened with gearheads. So many guys your dad's age and our age are gear. It just seems like the whole gearhead thing has disappeared. And you're not terribly interested in it either, but you've gotten used to the car now.
I mean, I've gotten used to the car. I barely drive it, so I have no interest in getting rid of it. It's in pristine condition, but it's like, if I need to flex at the Whole Foods parking lot, I can do it.
What I was going to say about Dry Bar is I've seen now, I think 4 comedians say, yeah, I got a special on Dry Bar. Just subscribe, watch the video, or watch my special, and then unsubscribe. And I was like, that's a really weird business plan for Dry Bar.
It's just like, well, everything is easier now in entertainment. It's like everything's on YouTube or whatever, and people only want to click one time. If all of a sudden you're excited enough to get a special and they're like, well, now you have to have people sign up. And after they sign up, then give them a credit card. And after they give it a credit card, you can tell them to jump ship in 2 weeks if they want. That's a lot of work to get people to do it.
Yeah,
So
it
it's
is.
still cool that the people did it, but it's definitely, there are easier angles.
Oh, yeah. It's no dud on YouTube. Getting a lot of views, and I watched it there, and it's not super long either. I'm not kidding. I smiled and laughed through the whole thing. I'm not saying this like the Hannah Gadsby reaction on CBS this morning. The one thing that really hit me was you talked about not being able to put your underwear on standing up, which was that I smiled and nodded. I didn't laugh out loud because that is a problem for me because I need a hip replacement. And then you had you talked about Reese's Cups, which is such a huge thing. I mean, very relatable stuff. Trudy is a Reese's maniac.
Hound.
It's my favorite.
I could eat Reese's. You had what was your habit up to?
4 cups a day. I was like 4 of those big. Yeah, I would drive I would stop at the gas station. It started when I was writing on shows, and it was like I didn't think the snacks in LA are always so healthy, and I was like, I just need like a wet Reese's peanut butter cup. You can't explain why it's wet at the bottom. You're like, you never understand it, and then you're just all in. And then it's just like you have a stomach ache and you get dizzy, and it's like this is what's supposed to happen.
They are really the best, and you're right. The commercials run a lot. Anytime I see those two colors together, I just think of Reese's.
Oh yeah.
Trigger.
It's
the
fun.
packaging.
That's the problem with the habit, man. You're going to be addicted to it even mentally.
No doubt.
I love them. I wanted to tell you a funny story, and I've always wanted to tell this story on the show. But so the special is called "Way Too Soon," and the way that the song "Too Soon" came about was misguided and totally out of vengeance. At the time, I was like younger into Los Angeles, and I was trying to make my way and move my way into different show writing and different things, and I really wanted to get on the roasts. So I would always go up to the Improv. And I would always go watch Jeff Ross, and I would watch him do his sets, and I would talk to him afterwards, and I would be like, oh, I have an idea for this joke, and this, you do comics too, and you give tags. So eventually he and I became friendly, and he invites me over to his house, and he says, come on over, we're going to write for the roast, and bring your guitar. And I didn't understand the guitar thing at all, so I was like, okay. So I get over there, and I get over to his house, and all he wants to do is learn guitar. He doesn't want to write jokes at all. He just wants to learn guitar. And I'm like, and I don't understand what's happening, but I'm okay with it. So I'm like, all right, well, it's a G chord. So then, because I don't know what he's doing, I give him every secret and every trick I've ever learned about music theory and comedy, where the major chord works, how you can get away with certain things, playing something that's dissonant, and all these every trick. Because I'm just, when the fuck is this guy going to use it? This dude takes every fucking thing I tell, like every trick, and he dresses up like Prince and goes to the roast. And that was the roast where he played guitar. And I was like, and in my brain, I was purple. I was so mad.
But you taught him.
I was like, I couldn't. And he was like, he would do a joke, and then he would play a little riff. And I was like, oh, he's doing it perfect. I'm so mad. And I was so upset. And I knew that his thing was too soon. So I found out that I was going to be on a show with him, and I knew that he was following me because he always closes it down. So I was like, all right, and I always know that Jeff pops in and he watches who's in front of him. So I waited until he got, and I was like, all right, what's the catchiest possible song that would steal from his essence? So I wrote Too Soon for only one reason, to be like, all right, you want to take my guitar? I'm taking your Too Soon. But of course, none of that happened. And he afterwards was like, oh, good song. And that was it. And we're friendly now, obviously. But
I'm going to need his phone number.
In the moment, I was just like, Ross.
What roast was that, by the way? Do you remember?
I don't remember. I just remember that he dressed up like Prince.
Oh.
And he had a guitar and he was playing a Strat.
I've just seen him.
That was Rob Lowe.
Was it Rob Lowe?
Yeah.
Okay.
Rob Lowe.
You know what else I want to ask you about your special on drybarcomedy.com? Although, why are we telling people that when they can watch it on? You just assume people watch it on YouTube, right? Just
He linked to his YouTube
okay.
account. Yeah.
Cool.
We're hoping.
The credits are really long, and the credits start, and I was like, I wonder how many credits there are, because it's just Chris with a microphone and a couple camera people. And there's a lot of credits. And then I thought, oh, maybe you want to have a lot of credits because it makes the thing look bigger, or is it just that many people really contributed?
Was Jeff Ross credited?
No, I don't think he was.
Internally forever. No, there's that many people. There's just like, I think there was 6 or 7 production people, 4 or 5 cameras. And then they have the person who goes over your jokes, which is always uncomfortable.
Oh,
Standards.
from Dry Bar?
Yeah, and it's like you have to. I remember because I have this old joke that didn't make the special that I love, and it's during Too Soon. It was do you think I was dating this girl and she was like, I want you to treat me more like a princess. So I said, okay, no problem. I get you. So I called a bunch of my friends up. They came over to my house, piled in the back of my car. We got some cameras. We chased her around until she crashed into a tunnel and sprang. And it was just, and then I tag her with, I was like, it happened so fast. It was like a candle in the wind. And the look of horror on this woman's face.
Oh,
like,
come on.
No dead princesses. Okay.
Oh,
Oh
really?
my God.
soon.
I'd be so flattered.
Well, I hope you're finding places to use that otherwise besides our show.
Yeah, absolutely. I throw it out whenever I can.
Great joke. And the Oxford football shirt you had on, too.
Yeah, I wanted to do that because it was just like, I just felt so, I don't know. I can't, I mean, everybody has different feelings about stuff like that, but it just felt so close to home. And it felt so like these are people who have no opportunities to do the things that I had opportunities to do. So the shirt was made by my friend Sean Higgins, who has a lacrosse company, Stinson Mueller, and him and his company made all the shirts for that in particular brand, and I was happy to support and happy to wear it.
Cool. No, that's the one shooting I think I felt personally. No, I mean, I have nothing to do with Oxford High, but that was, you just couldn't not feel that one.
That class just graduated, by the way, and we know someone whose son is in that class. So it's very, very hard.
Well, Charlie LaDuff.
Think about how they're, now they're set free in the world, and it's got to be hard.
No, very.
So thanks, Chris.
Defies words.
My pleasure.
And Charlie LaDuff had on the father of someone who was actually shot, right, Mark?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
She's doing better now, but yeah.
What was her prognosis? I mean, how many times was she shot?
Oh boy, I don't remember, but I know she saw everything, which seemed to be the bigger scar.
Wow.
Yeah.
I want to mention that when you watch Chris, by the way, Chris has a punchline is "Okay Boomer," and it's the first time I've heard "Okay Boomer" and really, really laughed because "Okay Boomer" is such an annoying thing to hear all the time, but it was really that's really so. Think of me when you hear that in a special. I thought it was a great joke, Chris.
Thank you. It's so funny when OK, like just a little insight into Hollywood. So when OK Boomer, that little moment of the person in, I guess, British Parliament who was like fighting off a heckle or whatever, when that happened, Fox paid probably close to 20 or 30 different writers, and I was in one of the teams to come up with an OK Boomer show because they wanted to capitalize on that phrase.
Brilliant.
Oh, really?
Wow.
And just
It went through.
God.
just make fun of boomers.
It was just literally like, you just imagine it's like all of a sudden it's like 20 different think tanks of people sitting in rooms. Okay, Boomer, what could that be? All right, well, maybe it's just a bunch of different people trying to get the carrot.
Why didn't they just look at TikTok? I mean, when that was popular, that was all just TikTok stuff.
I mean, I think that's the future of television anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like when we were younger, it's like you were famous if you were on TV. If you're famous on your phone.
Yeah.
Well, I
know.
put all my money in Quibi. I mean, I thought Quibi was going to be the new thing.
Solid investment.
Hey, Chris has been podcasting for years now, too. How many years, Chris?
Gosh, it's been about 5. I think I figured out how to do it about 6 months ago.
Yeah, it does. It takes a while. I mean, honestly, I can say, I think even doing radio all this time, there still was a learning curve for podcasting. It's just different.
Yeah.
But you had just, what a cool title. Heroin as a great publicist for the show. I love that title, and it really made me think. And I guess, did you just decide that this title is just too complicated and you've changed it to Newberg now, correct?
Yeah, I just went with Newberg. I love the first name. I loved Heroin has a great publicist. I know the meaning behind it, but that's what the difficulty is you're asking strangers you've never met to think and to try to go along with you. And I kept getting people flagging my shows on YouTube because they were like, this is dirty. And I'm like, you're not even fucking listening. I don't say anything about heroin. And so I just got frustrated, and I eventually just changed my mind and just changed the pod. I kind of just changed the tone of it. I kind of wanted to do sort of like a behind the scenes, because I write on so many shows, and I kind of wanted to talk about what it's like to be a comic, a white dude in his 50s, trying to still stay relevant, trying to still contribute and stuff like that. So it's like behind the scenes with a positive spin, but not like an annoying positive spin. Like, remember back in the day, I think it was either on Riff or Wheels or whatever, and CSX in the morning, they had that Mr. Positive, and he was like, I'm Mr. Positive, and everything about your day. And you're like, dude, fuck off. Like not that. Just like sort of the Norman Lear approach of like, well, it was Delta shit sandwich. Let's see what I can do with this.
Hey, Chris, what are you doing with the writer's strike now? I mean, and by the way, I'm hating this. It's just a torture. There are no shows to watch.
No shows.
Everybody's off. You're off.
It's awful because what happened was during the strike, when it first went down, when pandemic first went down, networks were desperate. They needed stuff. They needed material. They needed so many different shows. And because of all the news and everything that was being funneled to all the writers and producers and TV types, it was like, you're going to die, get a haircut, kill your grandma vibe. And it was like, so all the writers and creatives were like, all right, you want us to do it? It's 4 times our rate. And the networks were screwed. So they're like, all right, no problem. So they started green-lighting everything. And they started stockpiling stuff just in case there was a strike. And all of a sudden, a strike happens. And they're like, well, we're not going to pay you 4 times anymore the amount that you were getting paid. And we also have all these shows stockpiled. So have fun with your clever signs.
But here's my question about it. So I read that they got a lot of reality TV shows. Because that's really when it blew up last time, was the last writer's strike. Reality TV took up. But you are a writer for reality TV shows, so they have writers. How does that work?
Well, it varies. They cleverly refer to it as producer or content producer.
So it's a scam.
It's a scam. The pay is pretty comparable. An average writer, like low-level, regular writer, for probably game shows is like $3,500 a week to start, and then I think with Guild it's like 45 plus plus residuals. So there's definitely more incentive to be a writer producer. It's interesting. Like, okay, so there's a show that's on right now called I Survived Bear Grylls.
Yeah.
And it's the best show I've ever worked on, and it's the most I've ever done on a show. I wrote the scripts. I was host producer for Bear and for Jordan. I worked alongside the director and the showrunner to make changes constantly. I did so much, but my title was consulting producer.
Oh God.
So I can technically still work, but what's going to happen? The way they're going to end around and squish reality TV is SAG, AFTRA, and the Directors Guild are also motioning to strike. So if they strike, no one, union or not, writing-wise, doesn't matter. On camera talent, you're SAG-AFTRA no matter what. You can't perform.
Oh, God.
Well, what's the chance that this will be settled sometime reasonably soon?
I would imagine it'll be a few more months. I mean, they still have shows.
No.
Wow.
I'm afraid so. Yeah,
Can't.
it's like there's still shows that they have stocked. They have so many shows stockpiled.
What dicks? How
saw
dare
it
they?
coming. Yeah.
On that point, you mentioned working these comedy clubs and making $35 and stuff. And I'm like, Chris has been in Hollywood for a long, long time. How could anyone dare? And I remember reading in, was it Mike Binder's book, Mark, about the guys striking Leno, Letterman, all that group around 77, 78.
The Laugh Factory.
And I thought,
Comedy Store.
yeah, I thought they kind of broke that and got it so they were paid something. And I figured surely today there must be some low end that people are forced to pay. How do they get away with that?
Because there's so many comics out here. They're everywhere. It's just, I mean, just imagine how many beer drinking people in the D there are who wear Red Wings shirts and are like, "Rah!" all the time. It's like times that by 10, and they're all comics looking for like 35 spots.
Well, it's like, people having podcasts.
Right.
I mean,
Sure.
it's crazy how many people have podcasts. But I don't know. It just seems like all this business of striking and unions. I just feel like there would have to be. I mean, there's a difference though between comics. You have comics who are actually a draw and who actually make people laugh, and then you have comics that don't. So I mean, all comics are not made equally.
Well, it's just, I mean, it's the process now is just so absurd. If you think about it and break it down, any sort of successful entertainment position, you're no longer just that. It's like you're your own publicist, you're your own podcast, you're your own TV host, you're promoting all of these different things. You're writing, you're booking tours, you're having to, then you're going to have to promote. And it's so exhausting.
Yeah.
But I'm glad to say that before the writer's strike, and I hope this hasn't nullified or won't nullify this, but it sounded like you were having a phenomenal year. That, I mean, here you're talking about quitting, which I had no idea because you didn't tell anyone. And then all these good things seem to happen after you quit.
Yeah, it's funny. I worked on 9 network TV shows last year, and It was just, and every single one was right after the other. And it was interesting because I had people just like begging for me to work on their shows. And I don't know if it was because of the illusion that I was working so much that they assumed that I was doing wonderful things. Like I worked for 4 months. Actually, this is a funny story. So there's this new Jimmy Kimmel show out called Prank Panel.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's got some drama behind it, too.
Oh, they spend so much money on it. And it's I worked on it for 5 weeks, I think, and I just watched 5 weeks of stuff not go right. And I was like, how are they going to make this a television show? And then I watched the first episode, and all the comments were like, why are there 419 commercials? I'm like, because they have 7 minutes of recorded stuff. But I'm sure it got better, but it's like, yeah, there's just so many shows and there's just so many different things that have yet to be released that they're still kicking out. And plus you have all those like stuff that was initially planned for the summer. I mean, I hope I'm writing a movie to hopefully be finished with when the strike's over so I can just hand it in. And then
wow. That'd be awesome.
What's it about?
Well,
so
it's just a detective. It's a detective movie that's based in Reno and Detroit. And it's this like, my dad was from Reno, and like, I was like, in my grief process, I was like, someone murdered him. So obviously not. But I was just like, how can I explore that? And I was like, there are crazy characters in Reno. And I know a lot of stuff about Detroit. Like if I mention the local freeway, everyone will be like, yeah, I've been there. So
yeah,
I've been there.
Yeah, so remember when Hung was a show on HBO?
Oh, yeah.
Remember watching going, you wouldn't drive that way coming from there because of the exterior shots of Royal Oak.
But it was fun to watch. We still loved it.
it's in Ferndale.
I wanted to ask, though, about Prank Panel. The drama was the battle between Eric Andre and Johnny Knoxville. Is that as bad as we've been led on to believe? Like, Eric Andre got mad at Knoxville?
Wait, are they both on the show?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're both on the show. Well, it's interesting because they're both so excellent at pranking, and they each roll deep with their prank teams and crews. So there were so many writers, producers, guys behind the guy on the show. But they were definitely, Johnny was always pulling pranks on Eric constantly, and Eric, actually, it was funny. This one thing, it was pretty interesting. Like, I couldn't tell whether or not the 3 panelists enjoyed the show or not based on what I was seeing, because it was just, long days of constantly people being shuffled in. But there was one prank that didn't make it, and it was very funny to me. Like, this is how much money they were just throwing around. So apparently the prank was there was these 2 guys who were going to talk about how they hated cougars, any woman who was over 30. That was their description and definition of cougar. So they drove this very expensive electric 7+ series SUV BMW to the set. So basically what happened was they were in there and they were like, we don't like cougars. And they're like, what's that? So they cut to the parking lot where they have a girl who's 31 years old with an aluminum baseball bat. And she begins to smash the window of this guy's car. It's actually his car. What they did was they had a glass company right next to it. It was going to replace the door. But these windows were like protection proof, so she kept missing, and it was like live, and everyone's going to it, and it's bouncing off the window, and she ends up breaking the shit out of this guy's door and the bottom, and it ends up costing something like 15 grand. So then the game is, how much money do we need to lowball this guy to get him to take the 15 grand and get out of here before he sues the show for way more money? And so there's so much stuff, there's just so much stuff like that just didn't go right for that show. So I would imagine their initial $25 million budget was far exceeded.
Wow. I'm actually very interested in seeing it. Hey, I wanted to mention before we let you go that we had Dave Landau on the show, Dave Landau, and I asked Dave, I said, you must know Jay Chris, he's going to be on in a couple weeks, and he said, oh yeah, Chris and John Heffron and I all started together at Ridley's, and it's like, wow, that's really cool. I mean, he really had a kind of a glint looking back at that time. So you guys were all starting at ground zero at Ridley's, or close to that.
Heffron was ahead of us because he had success because he was a DJ. And he just kind of figured it out and split before. Landau came out a little bit after I did. And he's always been so insanely funny, and I'm so glad to see that he's like popping right now. That's
he really cool. Is
so deserved.
Yeah,
so deserved.
He's doing great.
So funny.
Yeah, no, I'm just happy for all three of you guys because I so admire. And I remember talking to Mike Binder about this. Just the idea of getting out of high school, which Mike was 18, and just going out there and saying, I'm going to be a comedian and not going to college. And he was in high school in Birmingham like you, and that was a really strange choice, but hey, it worked out. And it's not because he's from Birmingham either. But that's really ballsy.
It was fun. And it's one thing that I say when anyone asks me why I don't talk about politics. And it's just simple. It's plain as simple as this. I was born in upper middle class Birmingham, Michigan, to well-to-do parents, and I did not struggle at all. And then I moved to Los Angeles, and I lived in my car, and I was like, yeah, I'm shutting the fuck up on both levels now. So it's like, I don't have anything to complain about. So just Democrats, Republicans, cool, stay out of your car.
Well, I'm glad things are going better for you, and much better, it sounds like. And Way Too Soon is a special. I really recommend it. It's very funny, and the podcast is Newberg. I haven't listened to the podcast since it changed names, but I will give it a shot. Jay Chris Newberg, thanks so much for your time, and good luck with all this stuff.
Thanks, everybody.
See you, man.
Thanks for coming out with us.
All right.
Bye.